Hello there everyone, it's me Harry, and today is day 11 of the Mediavent Calendar. So today, we're going to be taking a look at Wizards of the Coast licensed titles. So this is an extension to the Hasbro episode I did in day 1. So in day 12, I'll be taking a look at the rest of the Hasbro games I own. But in this part, we're going to take a look at Wizards of the Coast titles. I'm doing them in a separate part because they're a separate division of the company, and I felt like it would be much more appropriate that way. So, we're going to start off with Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate Tales of the Sword Coast expansion pack double set. So this double set came out around 2001. The original game came out in 1998 and the expansion pack came out, I think, in 1999. So it comes in a slip box in some way. You open it up and then you get the discs inside. Here's the back. So it talks about the game, distributed by Virgin Interactive, developed by Black Isle Studios, and published by Interplay Productions. Oh, developed by BioWare. I forgot to notice that logo down there. Yeah, developed by BioWare, published by Black Isle Studios and Interplay, and distributed by Virgin Interactive. So yeah. So inside the box, this is what you get inside. Let me empty it. So you get a little paper map of the Forgotten Realms area, because this is a Forgotten Realms Dungeons and Dragons title. And then here's the map of Baldur's Gate itself. Well, since I know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, I don't exactly know what I'm talking about, but yeah, you get the point. Quick reference card, because this is an RPG, so there's a bunch of things that you would need to know, but all of these mean almost nothing to me. I'm not really that good at RPGs, but yeah. Virgin Interactive registration card, and that came with most of their games. Manual for Tales of the Sword Coast. And a really big, thick manual for the original Baldur's Gate. And, counting the discs, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 installation discs, because this was a really big game at the time, and a really big one. And we have the expansion disc. So it's a 6-disc set altogether. Quite a lot, really. And with that set, you really got what you wanted. Next up, we have Baldur's Gate 2. Shadows of Aman. Also including the Throne of Brahal expansion pack. So this double set came out around 2002 or 1, I believe. The game's copyrighted 2000 and the expansion pack, I think, says 2001. So this was once again developed by BioWare and published by Interplay and Black Isle Studios. So this was the last main entry in the series until Baldur's Gate 3 came out a few years ago. So the main game comes on... So there's 2 of the discs, so there's 3 of them. And then inside the little pamphlet is disc 1. So it's a 4-disc set. And then there's the expansion disc as well. So it's a 4-disc set compared to the 5-disc set from the original game. And it also comes with a separate CD-ROM that contains the manual in PDF form and additional patches that were made available. Because since this comes in a standard DVD keep case, there's no room for a manual. So yeah. And now we have the Icewind Dale Ultimate Collection, which comes with the original game and its 2 expansion packs. Well, actually, the original game in its expansion pack and the sequel in its expansion pack. So Icewind Dale, Heart of Winter, and Icewind Dale 2. And it also comes with the soundtrack and a bonus CD. My copy does not have the soundtrack, but this release came out in 2004. It was developed by BioWare. No, it actually wasn't. I think this was done in-house by Interplay. And it's distributed through Avalon Interactive, which was the short-lived rebranding of Virgin Interactive until Titus, their parent company, filed for bankruptcy. So opening the box, what you got inside was quite a few things, actually. It came in a tray. And then let's empty the tray out. So what you got inside was the quick reference card for Icewind Dale 2. Wow, that's a lot. The quick reference card for the original game, and then the rest of it is all discs. So you have manuals and patches. So once again, the manual is in PDF form. The Icewind Dale 2 bonus disc. And then the original Icewind Dale is a 2-disc set. It's much smaller than Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. The Icewind Dale expansion pack. And then you have both discs for the original Icewind Dale. So, yeah. To save time, I'll close this later. And then, after some conflicts that BioWare had with Interplay, their next RPG set in the Forgotten Realms universe, Neverwinter Nights, moved over from Interplay to Infogrames. And here is the game, released in June of 2002. And it was released under the Atari banner. So it was one of the few games that Infogrames released under the banner at the time. It comes in a cardboard box, as there's quite a lot of things included with the game. So let's open it up and empty out the contents and see what you get inside. Get a quick reference card. It's much smaller than the Baldur's Gate and the Icewind Dale ones. You have the map of Neverwinter. Let me open it up and show you a bit of it. Yeah, it's an A3 map. Oh, it's upside down. So it includes some of the locations from the game. Let's put it inside. Have the manual. So this manual is about, it's 201 pages long, full of information about the game. And yeah, since it's an RPG, a Dungeons and Dragons RPG, that's a lot. And then the other things you get are the installation discs and the play disc. They each have different coloured Atari logos. That's very interesting. Never seen that before. Well, when I got this game at least. So there's Neverwinter Nights. And then alongside that, there was the Shadows of Undertide expansion pack, released in July of 2003. So this came out a year after the original. It was developed by another company, not BioWare this time. I think BioWare was busy with other projects, so it was outsourced to another company. There's the manual. So this was the first of the games that was published by Atari rather than Infogrames, even though it still mentions Infogrames on the packaging. There we are. And then we have Neverwinter Nights Hordes of the Underdark, the third expansion pack of the game. And this came out in December of 2003. Let's open it. So here we are. So yeah, nothing really much to say about this either. It's what you'd expect. It is the third expansion pack of the game after all. And then one that I did actually just forget to bring down is this is a re-release of Shadows of Undertide from 2004 under the Best of Atari banner. It's the same exact game, just with an updated version of the game, and also because It doesn't come with a manual, it just comes with a PDF file of the manual on the disc. There we are. And then there's also Neverwinter Nights Kingmaker, which is a retail release of several mods made using Neverwinter Nights' game engine. So there were 6 released altogether that were sold on BioWare's website, but only 3 of them made it into this retail disc. The other 3 weren't available on BioWare's website until around 2006, and they weren't officially made available again until the recent deluxe version, I think it is, of the original Neverwinter Nights that was published under another company after Atari's deal with Hasbro expired for the Dungeons & Dragons IP. Next up is Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. So this is the part of the Dark Alliance duology. Another Forgotten Realms title. Developed by Snowblind Studios and published by Interplay and BlackRock again. Distributed by Vivendi Universal Games. So this was the Xbox version and it was released sometime in 2003. So here we are. The PS2 version came out in 2001. And the GameCube version, I think, came out around the same time as the Xbox version. So, yeah. Not much else to say about that. The Temple of Elemental Evil, developed by Troika Games and published by Atari. This was the very first Dungeons & Dragons video game to take place in the Greyhawk universe. So it was a lot different than the other games, which are mostly set in the Forgotten Realms. So let's open the box. It comes once again in a small box. So we have a really big manual, which is about, let's see, it's 182 pages long. And you get the install disc and the play disc. So there's not really much else included in this box. I think most of what was included is just in-game stuff. So not much else to say about that. Magic the Gathering Battlegrounds. So this is a fighting game based within Magic the Gathering. And the only Magic the Gathering video game that was published by Atari. As by 2005 Hasbro got the rights back. So this was, this was developed by Secret Level and published by Atari. It was released in November of 2003 for the Xbox and the PC. They're both the same game, so there isn't any difference within them. Whilst the PC version has 2 discs. Once again, an install disc and a play disc. And there's the manual. Now here comes Dungeons & Dragons Heroes. So this is a hack and slash game instead of an RPG. It's set within another Dungeons & Dragons universe that I don't know the name of. And this was an Xbox exclusive release. It was meant to be released on the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, but Atari decided to release it solely for the Xbox. It was developed by the former Microprose studio in Hunt Valley, which by then was named Atari Interactive Hunt Valley Studio. And it was the last game they developed before the studio shut down. Yeah, it doesn't explicitly say what Dungeons & Dragons universe this game takes place in. And this came out around November of 2003 as well. So, yeah. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. So this was developed by Black Isle Studios and published by Interplay Entertainment. Released in February of 2004 for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. So this is the sequel to the original Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Distributed through Avalon Interactive. As I said, the rebranding of Virgin Interactive. Here we are, there's the manual. And there's the back. And in some way, Acclaim Entertainment handled the physical distribution of this, but they're not credited anywhere on the packaging. Next up is the very first Forgotten Realms, proper Forgotten Realms title that was made for consoles, aside from the Dark Alliance series, and that's Demon's Stone, originally released for the PlayStation 2 in 2004. So yeah, it was the first Dungeons and Dragons RPG released for a console. As Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2, I think, were more hack and slash titles. I don't know for sure though. So there's that. And then in 2005, there was the PC version of the game, which is similar in content, but it's it's pretty much the same game. Single disc. It's a DVD-ROM. And there's the manual. And there we are. And there was also an Xbox version, but I'm trying to find that one. Duel Masters. So this was developed by High Voltage Software and published by Atari, as what you'd expect. Released in December of 2004. So this is based on the anime of the same name and the card game franchise of the same name that Wizards of the Coast published. There we are. And then there's some ads for the Duel Masters figurines. So this was during a craze in the 2000s where there were a lot of games that were based on card games or whatnot. So like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dinosaur King, for instance. So Duel Masters was one of those titles that was wandering through that bandwagon. Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard. This was a game set in the Eberron universe. And it's a real-time strategy game. And it was the first Dungeons and Dragons game in the real-time strategy genre. This was developed by Liquid Games and published by Atari as per usual. Released in November of 2005. So there's the manual. There's the manual. I'm just covering up the codes. I may have accidentally shown off some of the codes in the recent videos. So yeah, then we have the basic Dungeons and Dragons game ad on there. That would be really complicated for me to understand all of that. Dungeons and Dragons Online Stormreach. Another Eberron universe game from Turbine Games. But the game's still online to this day, but it would be completely useless trying to use this disc. And the publishing rights were originally with Codemasters, but Atari distributed this physical release of the game. Then it moved over to Warner Brothers, and now I think Daybreak Game Company has the rights to it. But it may have gone over to another company after them. I don't know for sure, though. So the physical release has 30 days free play, and then you would have to renew your contract. So it's a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And the game comes with, the game itself on a DVD-ROM, but that's mostly just used as like a boot disc of sorts. And there's also a demo for Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard. Pretty interesting, I'd say. So, and then it comes with a product key that's meant to be for like a guest pass where a friend can play for 5 days. And there's the manual. And on the back, there's an ad for Neverwinter Nights 2, which came out later on in the year. And speaking of Neverwinter Nights 2, here it is. Released in October of 2006, developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Atari. So by that point, Hasbro was really only publishing through Atari the Dungeons and Dragons titles. They'd given back. Atari had given back all their other rights to their other games. So yeah. So here's the disc, and then there's the manual. So yeah, obviously this is the sequel to the original Neverwinter Nights, and it's sort of similar to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where BioWare developed the first game, but I think Obsidian did the second game. But once again, I don't really know for sure. Neverwinter Nights 2 Mask of the Betrayer, the first expansion pack for the game, released in 2007. Same developer and publisher. Here's the disc and the manual. The back has an ad for Dungeons and Dragons basic game. And then the final expansion pack, Storm of Zehia, was released in 2008. And then there was also an adventure pack, which I don't think came out in the UK. I think it was an online only thing. The back just says join the community for Atari. Shadows of Mysteries of Westgate was the adventure pack name. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this part, and for day 12, as I've said before, we'll take a look at the rest of my Hasbro game collection. So yep, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.